What's up, homies? This is Leon, and tonight I'm going to be doing my very first collection video and showing some titles from a bygone publishing imprint that I think doesn't get enough love, and that is Onyx Horror. Now, Onyx is an offshoot of Signet. You've probably seen them before. They published a bunch of stuff back in the day, including all those classic Stephen King paperbacks. Both Onyx and Signet were imprints from New American Library, an American publisher that was huge back in the day. I'm not quite sure exactly what the difference is between Onyx and Signet, but judging from some of the titles here, my best guess is that as the 80s wore on and horror in both film and literature got bloodier, nastier, more violent, New American Library decided that they needed to have a little distinction. And I think that they wanted to kind of keep Signet somewhat classy with Stephen King and writers like that, and then sort of relegate all of the trash and super hard violent stuff to Onyx Horror, which is probably why I gravitate toward those titles especially. So we are going to be looking at my Onyx books today. I'm not going to talk about all of these. I have quite a few, and I want to keep this video relatively short, so I may go through these a little quickly, but here we go. The first one is The Breeze Horror by Candice Caponegro. This was published in 1987. Quite an infamous book in these circles. This person never published another book, and it's very likely that it was a pseudonym for someone else. Who knows who it was? But despite the title, it is not about murderous winds, although that would have been awesome. Okay, next up, we've got Stage Fright by Garrett Boatman. This was published in 1988. Like the last one, this author never published anything else again under this name. Who knows if this was an established author? It really makes you wonder how many of these books were published by, authors we may know who just wanted to try to make a quick buck during the horror boom. So, yeah. Next one is The Revenant by Hugh Zachary. This was published in 1988. You'll find that a lot of these were published in 87, 88. In fact, Onyx pretty much lasted only from 88 to 90. They kind of died with the horror boom. So, yeah. Next up, personal favorite of mine, Manstopper by Douglas Borton. This was published in 1988. This is a really good book. I mean, you look at that cover and you think, oh, it's some cheap animal attack book, but you'd actually be surprised. This guy actually takes the time to establish characters, and you really feel for them when they meet their horrific ends. And it's really well done, well-written books. This guy, unfortunately, kind of came in toward the end of the boom and didn't make it. He didn't really publish anything in the early 90s. But recently, I've heard that he's found some success publishing thrillers under the name Michael Prescott. So good for him. A couple more Douglas Borton books. Dream House. This was published in 1989. Okay. And then we've got Death Song. That was published in 1989 as well. Really cranking them out there toward the end. Okay. And we've got Cain by Douglas Borton. This one was 1990. Okay. This is actually the first Douglas Borton book that I found in a bookshop, and is what kind of got me hip to him. And then we got Shadow Dance. This was the last one that he published. This was published in 1991. This was actually published by Signet, but like I said, it's hard to make the distinction, and I threw it in here anyway just because all of his other stuff was published by Onyx. This one's supposed to be one of his best. I haven't read it yet. Next up, we've got In Darkness Waiting by John Shirley. I think I mentioned him in a previous video. I'm a big fan of his. This is a really, really good one. Highly recommend it. Now this one, Fear by R. Patrick Gates. I just want to take a minute and say I read this thing about a month or so ago, and this shit just blew me away. This one is absolutely insane, over the top, completely bonkers, super crazy, gory. This one is for the splatter fans, you know, and I wish in some alternate reality that in 1989, Frank Darabont had adapted this thing into a screenplay and Chuck Russell had directed it. It just feels like that. So, you know, those are the people behind Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and The Blob. This thing, if you like, you know, horror in which characters are melting, faces are melting off, and just a nonstop, just insane bloodbath, check this one out. Really, really fun stuff. And then R. Patrick Gates' follow-up, which is supposed to be even better, Grim Memorials. This was published in 1990. Really looking forward to checking this out. I've heard it's basically a modern-day Hansel and Gretel for adults with just stomach-churning violence and gore. Sounds right up my alley. These piles are going to get out of control. Okay, next up, we got Mama's Boy by Linda Crockett Gray. This was published in 1989. Here's one that time has completely forgot. I don't think there's a single review of this thing on Goodreads or Amazon or anywhere. So there's that. Next up, we've got Happy Cage by Daniel Raven. Another one where this guy never published another thing. In fact, Daniel Raven, I'm pretty sure that was a pen name. Who knows who this really was? This thing is super obscure. I couldn't find anything on it. There's not a single review online, but it looks pretty interesting. Looking forward to checking that out at some point. Next up, we've got The Ways of Darkness by Joseph Hayes. This was published in 1987. Next up, we've got good old Richard Lehman with Resurrection Dreams. This edition from Onyx was published in 1989, although this book was actually published in hardcover in 88, which is sort of rare. I don't think Lehman had a bunch of hardcovers, but this one, I mean, look at that. Look how cheesy that cover is. The book is equally as cheesy. If ever there was a book that felt like one of those cheesy 80s movies, this is it. I mean, it's just absolutely bonkers, ridiculous. You've got, you know, a killer who spouts one-liners. A lot of fun. Dumb fun. Next up, we've got Moon by the late, great James Herbert, author of the infamous Rats series. This one was published in 1987, this edition, although it was originally published in 85 in England, I would imagine. So there's that. Next up, we've got Slob by Rex Miller. Now this one says Signet, although I was almost positive this was an Onyx title. Some of this author's other books are Onyx titles, but really dig this book, actually. I noticed it gets a lot of hate online. I'm not sure why, but it's got a really fascinating antagonist, I guess you would say, chain gang, an morbidly obese serial killer who has a soft spot for animals. It's actually very sweet. Yeah, Slob. Cool book. And then we got Frenzy by the same author, Rex Miller. This one is legit Onyx title. Haven't read this one yet, but I'd like to at some point. Okay, next up, got The Lilith Factor by Gene Paiva. And this one was published in 1989. It's pretty interesting. Haven't read this one yet. Okay, and then another one by that same author, Gene Paiva. This is The Last Gamble. This one was published in 1990. So you can see these writers were cranking this stuff out. I mean, if they didn't publish just one, they would publish like one a year. You're really going at it there. All right. Next up, another one that time has completely forgot. This is a Shock Totem by Tom Metzger. This was published in 1991. Another one of those books. Could not find a single thing online about it. No reviews anywhere. Just those are the kind of things I love to find, though. Those are the treasures. I haven't read this yet, but who knows? Maybe it's a treasure. Maybe it's like something that no one has ever read, and that is just like an amazing reading experience. We can only hope for that, right? Okay, next up, this is Body Mortgage by Richard Angling. This was published in 1989. Get more of a thriller vibe from this one, but looks pretty interesting. Looking forward to checking it out at some point. Okay, next up, we've got The Land of the Dead by K.W. Jeter. Now, this guy is really, really good. I discovered him with the novel Soul... Oh, gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. Soul something. But really, really good. Published by Tor. I can't think of the name of it right now. Yeah, I don't know. This is a really good writer. I'm not going to edit this. I don't edit any of these videos, but yeah, look into KW Jeter. He's amazing, and read his stuff. Okay, next up, Ghost Light by Claire McNally. This was published by Onyx in '92, although it's a reprint because the original edition, a hardcover from Bantam, was published in 1982. So this is probably the earliest book on this in this whole video right here. Yeah, I have not read this one. Okay, next up, we've got Amy Girl by Barry Wood. Barry Wood is the author of a novel called Twins, which was adapted into a David Cronenberg movie called Dead Ringers. Some people may be familiar with that. But a very good writer, Amy Wood. Okay. Next up, we've got Cult by Edward Frail. Another one that time is completely forgotten. I don't think there's a single review of this thing anywhere online. This was published in 1990. Looks kind of interesting. Okay, down to the last few here, folks. Next up, we've got Sunglasses After Dark. This was written by Nancy A. Collins in 1989. I believe this won the Bram Stoker Award of that year, so it was critically acclaimed. Have not got to this yet. I'm really looking forward to it, though. Seems pretty cool. And then another one from Nancy A. Collins. I believe this was her follow-up, Tempter. This was published in 1990. Okay, next we've got Shadow Show by Brad Strickland. This was published in 1988 and deals with movies, which is kind of cool. Looking forward to reading that one at some point. All right, our penultimate one, we've got Nightmare People by Lawrence Watt Evans. And this one was published in 1990. Kind of a bland cover, but I don't know. Could be cool. Never judge a book by its cover, folks, right? Although I do that all the time. And then finally, Big Girl by Tom Metzger and Richard P. Scott, published in 1989. I really dig that cover. This is quite an infamous one. Kind of bizarre, I've heard. I have not read it yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading it. But yeah, that is gonna do it, guys. I kind of tried to breeze through that really fast. I didn't want this thing to go too long, but thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of that, Hope to do more of these collection videos. I want to do a UK video soon. Maybe I'll split that up depending on how many titles there end up being there between my Hamlin books and my Star books. And of course, I hope to have another video review of a novel soon. So yeah, thanks a lot for checking this out, guys. Have a great day, and I will catch you later. Bye.